I'm Chris and I'm 37 years old. I am the chairman of well-established transport company. My financial success has never crossed my mind that it would be a curse that I would suffer from. The lovely girl from whom I got married was Blake, who was 26 years old, a young and stunning lady with adorable smile. Blake worked as a receptionist at my company. My company had just hired her as a new employee. It was obvious that she had a lot of attractive qualities. At work, she was always entertaining me with her antics. The person that I enjoyed being around the most was her. I started hanging out with her. After taking her to a couple of parties, I could sense from her thoughts that she started enjoying luxury parties. She comes from a poor family, so it was quite expected for her to be amazed by these parties and enjoy being a part of them as well. I promised her one night at a dinner, and after a couple of months of dating, we got married after 2.5 months of dating. In my ignorance, I had no idea that she was planning something much worse for me than that I had expected. I remember it was our first week as a married couple. As I've been inactive at my company since getting married, I decided to visit them. I even asked my wife if she would come with me. She said, however, that she was feeling dull and refused to come with me, so I decided to surprise her by getting home very early from work. I went so far that I even took some of her favorite snacks with me to the house for her to enjoy. As I walked back to our house, I noticed that my wife was wearing a very revealing dress. She was facing the camera as if she were on a video call with someone. As soon as she saw me, she began to settle herself down and put down her phone. She had been on phone call, but she began to give me an explanation that one of her sisters was missing her. I have to be honest, she had never even discussed her sister or any other one of her family members before. Nevertheless, I did not take this matter seriously, and Peg presented her with the snacks that I had bought for her. It was sort of disappointing to see how my wife reacted to the snacks I bought for her, as she seemed not to like them at all. Whenever I saw her, she looked really excited and began to sugarcoat me with whatever she wanted to buy. Well, I took her to the mall so that she could do some shopping, as if it was her last day out shopping. While I was sleeping one night, I was woken up by the sound of my phone ringing. As soon as my eyes opened, I found that my wife was no longer in bed because of the loud ringtone I had heard. Well, I picked it up as a business call. I moved out of my room in order to see my wife. My wife at this late hour of the night was in the storeroom, and I was shocked to see her there. I remember she was speaking with someone who was on a call. The moment I appeared in front of her, she was in a state of shock. She did something really strange, like she cuddled me hard and told me that it was a call from one of her poor friends. She told me that her friend is pregnant and her husband is unemployed. Therefore, I asked my wife to tell me that I would hire her friend's husband as a qualified employee in my company. As she informed me, the husband of her friend is not well qualified but he has experience in cooking. Well, after much insistence from my wife, I allowed him to work as a cook. 2 days later, I remember a young and handsome man entering our home at around 10 p.m. He was introduced to me by my wife, and he began working as our cook. As usual, I was busy with work. After work, I contacted my wife to get an update on her, but I remember that she was not picking up my call. I even called her many times. After about 5 hours, she called me back and said that she was sleeping. This was something as creepy as she had updated a picture on her Facebook account 2 hours ago. My wife may not have known that I stalked her with my fake account to track her whereabouts. In my mind, it was a red flag, but I wasn't aware of what was going to happen as a result of this. I remember when I arrived home, I was shocked to see my wife laughing with John. They were shocked to see me in front of them and began to say that they were preparing something special for me. There was no one in the kitchen except them. There was something strange about the way they talked to one another. I imagined something was wrong. When I was in the bedroom the next night, my wife constantly asked me to drink wine that was poured into a glass. Though I refused, I was forced to drink. Honestly, I did not know why she was acting in such a way. It was blurry in my vision at the time, but I recalled that she was holding a pen and a piece of paper. At that time, I was fully drunk and completely engrossed in sleep. The next morning, I just noticed that my wife was doing something in my cupboard, which used to be locked normally, and I always kept the keys with me. I had no idea what happened that night. I just remembered that my wife was doing something when I was present. As soon as she found me awake, she began to say good morning to me. I remember I was feeling really lazy, dull, and even dizzy. I started to notice that my wife's activities were getting strange day by day, and one day when I came home from work early, I found my wife along with John. In a way, it was like they were sitting in bed and having a conversation with each other. Even though they were holding hands, it was a bit awkward that they were doing so. When they found me in front of them and discovered my wife, she was like a fish out of water. They were literally in the shock, the rude way in which I asked her why an ordinary cook was in our bedroom. As usual, my wife created a drama by telling me that his poor wife will be giving birth very soon. Therefore, he wanted a bit of money to help her out. Despite her explanation, I was not convinced by her response that their acts were suspicious in any way. Well, I gave him some money and asked him about the hospital and other things, but he did not give me an exact answer. I even came to the point where I asked him to bring his wife to our house. He always used to say his wife's dignity would be hurt after seeing him cook. The truth is, I trust my wife with my life, but after that incident I began to think negatively about her. It was not clear to me why this happened. After a few days, she asked for $3,000 from me. When I asked, she replied that her sister was in crisis and she needed this amount, so I gave her the amount. I noticed many times Blake and John always tried to interact with each other, and one day upon entering the house, one of my old maids tried to speak with me, but she was unable to do so. Then I asked her what was wrong, and she explained to me. I heard something shocking and thought-provoking. The maid said, "Sir, I apologize for what your wife is doing to you, but your wife is cheating on you." After hearing her words, I was amazed and did not reply to her. During this time, my wife showed up and became very fearful after seeing me with the old lady. The maid's concern kept popping up in my mind, and I asked her to explain everything to me. The following day, she told me that she had seen them cuddling up to each other one day. However, I was not able to believe in her, but their past activities have led me to believe in her. I was extremely angry at her for this act. When I asked Blake about it, she said that maid was lying about what she had done, since she caught her stealing some jewelry. I was really shocked that I have known the old woman since my childhood. She fired the maid the next day. I realized that there's something really wrong with my wife. What my wife did to me was continuously popping up in my mind and was on my nerves. I decided to go into the depth of the matter. I asked one of my office boys to investigate John. I even gave him some related information about John. After about 1 week, my office boy gave me all the details of John. I was shocked to know that John was to be the long-term boyfriend of my wife. Both of them belonged to very poor families and are cousins in relation. I further came to know that John was unmarried and was working as a cook in a restaurant. If at this point that all the connections were made, and I was damn sure that Blake was cheating on me with John because all their activities are due to the fact that they were old lovers. In order to catch them both red-handed, I decided to keep a close eye on both of them. A spy camera has been set up at my home in order to monitor their activities. During one of my visits to the bank, I found that $2,000 had been cashed out a week ago when I was doing some paperwork. The bank manager informed me that a man had come to the bank who cashed the check when I inquired about it. I was astonished because whenever I signed checks for company employees, I never saw one with $20,000. Thus I asked the manager to tell me who was the man who gave the check. Obviously, they had all the records of everything they had done. He said the man was named John. It is difficult for me to remember if I gave him a check or not. When I got home, Blake was not at home. When I called her, I tried calling her numerous times, but she did not reply. I finally received a call from her and she mentioned that she was in the middle of shopping now and would be returning home in an hour. In the meantime, I was waiting for her, so I checked what was being recorded on the spy camera. I was absolutely blown away when I saw that John and Blake fucked, and I also saw that she gave him money and a file from my cupboard. It was crystal clear now that Blake gave the check to John. That night she must have taken my signs when I was drunk and she urged me to drink. I recall that night a bit. She stole my money and gave it to her lover. Anyway, Blake came after about an hour. When she hugged me, I was no longer that husband who loved her anymore. I just answered her by saying that I wasn't well. The next day I called John and Blake and showed them a video. As Blake began to cry and beg me, I was infuriated and hit her, telling her to stay away from me. I also called the police, who came and arrested both of them. Blake was divorced and I also charged with fraud on both of them by my lawyer, and the evidence was presented in court against both of them. The court sentenced them to 9 years and fined them for their crimes. I never imagined she would do such a bloody thing with me. I do not believe that she was loyal to John because I believe that she was loyal to money and luxuries of life, even if she did not have any, but she was willing to commit any crime to get them.